How's it going, everybody? My name is Warner Fields with Fields of Profit. I'm a full-time 7-figure Amazon seller, and in today's video, I'm going to be walking through exactly how I'm able to make well over 6 figures in profit per year with about 2 to 3 hours of work a day. And I want to preface this video by saying this is absolutely not what your Amazon business will look like at the start, but I just wanted to kind of give you an insight as to what I'm doing in my personal Amazon business to make sure that it stays a business and not just a hustle, actually creating a vehicle where I'm not having to work so much and the business continues to make more and more money. So I wanted to share with you the steps that I've taken to work very little in my business and create some pretty good results. So before we jump into that, if you're brand new to the channel or want even more free resources to teach you how to sell on Amazon, linked directly beneath me is going to be our completely free Amazon seller Discord community. There's like 27,000 people in there sharing a ton of free information. Would love to see you in there, but let's go ahead and jump into the video. So for those of you who are watching this video and might be kind of new to the idea of Amazon FBA, or you're just getting your business started, for this video, I'll kind of walk through the process kind of step by step, where in each step of the process, I've been able to take myself out of the business and put somebody else in there, put a software in there so that I'm not having to do so much work for myself. So the first step of this business is to find a product to sell, right? We've got to go out and use whatever tools we want. There's SellerAmp, there's tactical arbitrage, there's a million different tools out there you can use, tons of different ways that I've never even learned to source products, tons of ways I have learned to source products. But with that is a very time-consuming process, right? Going out, hunting through these websites, hunting through tactical arbitrage searches. It is a very lucrative thing, but it is also very time-consuming, especially if you're someone who wants to be spending thousands and thousands of dollars every single day on products. You're going to have some really good systems in place for sourcing your products. So for me, towards the end of last year, I was doing about $40,000 or $50,000 a month in sales. I'd kind of figured things out, but I had reached the point where it was getting really difficult for me, especially since I was full-time in school. I know you're probably full-time job, you might be in school yourself, so you don't have a lot of time either. I had reached the point where I was doing about $40,000 to $50,000 a month in revenue, and I just didn't have as much time left over after school. I only had 3 or 4 hours a day I could devote to the business on top of being a college student. So that's where I started hiring virtual assistants to do some product sourcing for me. And if you've never heard of this concept before, basically what I mean by a virtual assistant is just someone who's basically a remote worker for you. For me, I typically hire my virtual assistants from the Philippines, and using virtual assistants, I've been able to build some systems that work without me so that I can kind of wake up in the morning. The Philippines kind of has an inverse time schedule. So pretty much every day I wake up, there's a big list of profitable inventory for me to go ahead and buy, and I don't have to do any of that manual searching, looking through Amazon listings, any of that. My team takes care of a lot of that for me. And on top of that, I also have a manager who manages the other guys who do find leads, and he's really good, really smart, and I trust him to look at the leads they're finding. And so by the time I receive the leads that I'm going to buy in the morning, those leads have already been found by someone else and vetted by someone else. So I know that there's going to be a very high chance that those leads are going to be good for me to go ahead and just swipe my credit card on. So just by doing that, I've been able to take myself out of the process a ton by outsourcing my product sourcing. So this next step in the process is something I never really even thought about as a full complete step in the process, which is simply just buying the inventory. And this recently became a bottleneck for me because personally, I want to be spending at least $3,000 a day. Really, I have the capital to be spending $6,000 to $10,000 a day on products. So I really want to be leveling up my ability to do that. And it was reaching a point in my business where I was spending multiple hours a day simply swiping my credit card, punching in my credit card number, punching in my addresses, and it just didn't make a lot of sense for me to be doing that anymore. So I very recently was able to hire a buyer who now goes ahead and goes into that inventory. They look at those products that are already approved for us to go ahead and buy. I am still involved in that process. I'm, maybe eventually I'll pull myself out of that step in the process. Hopefully eventually I'll be able to. But right now, basically what I'm doing is I'm looking at that list of good products that my manager gave me. And then with that list, I'm creating a list for my buyer. And I say, hey, can you go ahead and buy 24 of these and 48 of these and 72 of these? And I'm kind of just picking the quantities that we want to buy, making sure that the coupons and all that kind of stuff is working out so that our cost basis is low enough to actually be making a profit. But after I do that, I just go ahead and pass that off to my buyer, and then they're the one who's actually going ahead, punching in those credit card numbers and taking care of all the back-end systems that we need to do to make sure we're super well organized. But as they're buying that inventory, the next step in the process is going to be shipping that inventory somewhere that you can go ahead and prep the inventory. So for a lot of you new sellers who are at home, I would highly recommend doing your own prep work for a little while. Basically what that's going to mean is you're going to buy that profitable inventory, and then you're going to go ahead and send that to your house. From there, you're going to go ahead and print out little stickers. You're going to cover the UPC codes. It's kind of a detailed process. So if you've never done that before, there's some videos on my channel that'll walk you through that process. I'm sure there's a bunch of good videos on YouTube that'll walk you through creating your first shipment. But I would really recommend doing your own prep work for a while as a brand new seller. Really, you shouldn't be outsourcing to using a prep center until it becomes a significant bottleneck in your business. And for those of you who aren't familiar with what a prep center is, basically it's a business, a warehouse where I'm able to go ahead and buy those products from the websites. Those are profitable inventory. I can ship it off to the prep center, and they're going to do all the prep work for me. me, and I'm going to pay them a per unit fee. So those fees can really add up if you're not careful, especially a brand new seller with not a lot of capital. You might have the advantage of having time to devote to your business. So if you're putting money in your business where you could be devoting time, it's just going to slow down your growth over time. So if possible, make sure you're doing your own prep until it becomes a significant bottleneck in your business. Otherwise, your profit per unit is going to go down. Just the nature of paying $1, paying $2 per unit to go ahead and have all that work done for you. Just the nature of that, where you're going to be limited in your long run profitability if you don't immediately kind of just put in that hustle at the start and do that work yourself for a little bit. But for my personal business, I almost 100% use a prep center. I ship very little of my inventory to my sister across the country. She still does some work for me, but most of my inventory is going to the prep center. So I honestly haven't seen any of the products I've sold for 6-7 months now, which is a really cool perk of the job. So this is also another part in the business where I'm still a little bit involved in terms of communicating with the prep center in case we have any issues. Sometimes you'll receive broken boxes or not enough quantity. And so I'm actually taking care of a lot of that stuff myself still. That's definitely one of the next steps that I'll go ahead and take to be even less involved in the business, is someone to kind of monitor, communicate with the prep center, communicating the returns that we need to do with the different stores we're working with. All that kind of stuff is eventually going to be outsourced, but we've got to take this one step at a time, right? I can't rush into having a fully automated business, and neither should you. So after we take care of all that work, we've sourced a product, we've bought the inventory, we've shipped it off to the prep center, then the prep center ships it off to Amazon FBA for me. If you're not familiar with how Amazon FBA works, those prep centers or you're going to go ahead and ship your inventory into Amazon FBA, and then when the item actually sells, they're going to be the ones who send those items to the customers for you. That's when you get paid as an Amazon seller. I know a lot of people kind of get confused when they actually get paid. It's going to be whenever Amazon ships off your product to the customer receives it, they have a good experience with it, they don't return it. That's when you're going to be getting paid for your inventory. And then once you're at that stage in the process, pretty much the only work you're going to have left to do is monitoring the health of those listings you've got going on, whether that be repricing the items to make sure you're actually going to be continuing to make sales, taking care of things like stranded inventory, where if anything happens to go wrong, every now and then you might get a message from a customer. I'm still handling those myself because I get like 1 or 2 a week. It's really not a big deal, especially when you're all FBA. Most of those messages are going to be handled by Amazon FBA's customer service. So that's another great perk of that. But this is definitely something else that I'll be outsourcing eventually in my business. In terms of the repricing strategy, I think that's one of the more high level things you should be doing in your business, because making the wrong decision when you're repricing inventory could lead to a pretty big expense, especially if you're stocked really, really deep on something. And it's not a huge time sink, especially if you have your repricer set up correctly with a repricer like BeCool. It's really not going to be a huge time sink for you. So I'm still managing that myself, but being fully aware of what I'm saying, I should be outsourcing that before too long. Just haven't figured out the right systems for that. So I definitely don't want to rush into that too early. But between the limited admin tasks I have and I'm approving the purchases we're making, beyond that, there's really not a lot of work that I personally have to do in my Amazon business. Again, this is not what your business will look like at the start. I don't want to set an unrealistic expectation for your business, but I do want to talk about what could be possible in the long term of your business, because it's important to know that you're going to have an end goal where it's actually a sustainable system. You're not going to be in the trenches grinding all the time. This is just while you're starting out that it's going to be a difficult business, but as you grow, you should be learning how to build these systems so that you can do less and less work as your business makes more and more money. So I hope you guys got a ton of value out of this video. If you are interested in learning some of the processes that I use to manage my virtual assistant team, including the entire documents that we give to our virtual assistants on day one, all of that is available in the FBA roadmap, linked directly below me. Comes with a 2-week money back guarantee, and we've had a ton of great testimonials from that course. But if you have any questions, comments, anything like that, feel free to drop those down below. I'm always happy to answer those. If you don't mind liking, subscribing, all that kind of stuff, that helps me out with the algorithm as well. But I really appreciate you guys watching, and I will see you next time.